Hello and welcome to the CX Files for August 8th, 2024. My name is Mark Hillary and I'm in Sao Paulo, Brazil.
And I'm Peter Ryan in Montreal. Mark, great to see you and really excited about a very, very cutting edge guest that you had the chance to interview today.
Yeah, Jonas Berggren, he's in charge globally, I believe, from quite recently for sales at Transcom. Many of the listeners will know Transcom, the Swedish-based BPO, although they do have operations globally. And I think that Jonas is a good example of something that you said on the pod last week, where you'd seen Leo Lopez talking very intelligently about a subject on LinkedIn. And so you invited him to be a guest on the podcast. And it's really the same thing with Jonas. He's got a LinkedIn newsletter called Transform Customer Service that I subscribe to. And it's often saying very intelligent things. I mean, it's very far-sighted and, far from the normal kind of marketing rubbish that you normally see posted by most of the BPOs. In this, you actually see him having an opinion, talking about the future of the industry, and talking honestly, even where it might not positively impact Transcom. It's a very interesting newsletter, and I think that in the last few months he's been focused a lot on AI, but really kind of dispelling a lot of the myths and talking about, look, here's what AI can do. Here's how we can transform customer service using tools like this, but here's all the myths. Forget about what they're telling you in the general kind of news media about the end of jobs and all of this. Here are practical examples of what we are doing and how it can really help.
Well, it'll be good to hear what Jonas has to say about the future of the industry. I completely take your point. There's far too many newsletters out there that are published that are quite frankly 90% vacuous and just full of marketing speak. His and what he brings to the table is experience, but I also think a practical, real-world approach in terms of how these elements are viewed. So from the standpoint of what some of the key takeaways are, I'm really excited to hear what he has to say over the course of the chat that you undertook with him, because, let's be perfectly frank, Transcom is a cutting-edge company. It's probably one of the ones that I've been following closest. I actually had the chance to visit their site in Croatia, in Zagreb, a few months ago, and see the amazing work that they were doing from the digital side over there. Spent some time with the executives from their digital innovation hub. I even wrote a blog about it. Highly respect this organization and what they're doing.
Yeah, I remember that they were doing stuff with AI, like long before stuff like ChatGPT was launched. And so, that they have a long history of experimenting with innovative CX. And yet, they are, I guess, often just seen as a sort of Europe-focused BPO. But I think that what's really interesting is just this kind of practical application. Here's what you can really do. Here is a use for technology that actually makes CX work better.
Yeah, exactly. And we should really, I think, pay practical attention in terms of what Jonas is talking about and what Transcom, as you say, has a track record of doing. It's very much been a cutting edge organization and very truly a global organization. If you take a look at their footprint now, it's across the world. And I really have been impressed with what they've been up to for quite some time.
All right, so let's go and listen to Jonas Berggren talking about his Transform Customer Service newsletter. Okay, Jonas, it's great to get you back on the podcast. I think it's been about a year and a half since you talked to us. And previously we were talking about innovation and gig CX. This time I wanted to focus on your newsletter because for just over a year, you've been publishing a newsletter on LinkedIn called Transform Customer Service. And it's very focused on the future of CX and especially how AI is changing CX. So do you think that I mean, what you're looking at in your newsletter is really pragmatic and focused on what's really happening in companies out there. But a lot of the media coverage is not quite so helpful. It's often very much, CX is technology led, or it's not. It's almost like it's the end of the contact center. This is the message we keep seeing in the business press. So do you think that a lot of the AI media coverage has not really been very helpful?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me back, Mark, and love to talk about this topic. Everybody seems to be interested, both hearing about it and talking about it. So that's great. No, but back to your question, I think media is always looking for the angles and the news value, right? So that can really skew, a balanced approach to new things. So sometimes it's more all about the future drama and a little bit of clickbait. It's about job losses. It's about great hallucinations and big fines for companies whose bots are giving weird answers and so forth. But having said that, I mean that sensationalism or the fear of AI replacing jobs, rather than exploring the sort of practical and transformative benefits AI brings to customer service, as an example, I think my newsletter, it kind of aims to fill the gap, by providing some hopefully thoughtful, but at least nuanced insights, how AI is reshaping not just the CX landscape, but business as a whole, and try to highlight both opportunities and challenges.
Yeah. Do you think then that the real big change in the kind of general public and general media understanding was when ChatGPT was launched at the end of 2022? Because before that, there were lots of AI projects before that, but I guess it was mostly industry insiders, people that were actually connected to the technology. So it was more specialized, but now there seems to be a much more general understanding that AI is changing business.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, absolutely. I mean, the launch of ChatGPT, by OpenAI, it was kind of a significant turning point, because I think prior to that, AI was often perceived as something complex, kind of like a niche technology, and primarily for the tech nerds and the geeks and specific business application. But when you got this conversational interface, ChatGPT showcased, I think, the potential in a more relatable and accessible way to the general public, and that's a shift in perception that I think has helped people to understand AI a bit more, and what it can do in different practical applications in everyday life. Make it more mainstream. And then going back to some people claiming they worked with this a long time ago, I think they mean more that we were working with machine learning in a more scripted environment, but the large language models is more contextual. So when we speak about old AI, sometimes I think people mean machine learning more than anything else. So yeah, but it's amazing, overnight. And when we saw how much more human-like it was than previous solutions, I think it really hit home to many individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, the experience that we've all had previously is chatbots, customer service chatbots that could only answer 12 different questions. And so suddenly we were seeing these kind of bots that we could actually have real conversations with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I saw that you wrote, one of your newsletters was called Lean In or Lose Out. And, this kind of summarizes the idea that you either lean in and focus on AI and explore this, or you're going to damage your company. So, I mean, what's that? What's your focus there? I mean, you really feel that companies that are standing back and waiting to see what happens are actually going to cause damage to their corporate structure.
Well, I guess I argue that corporate leaders must sort of actively explore and integrate AI into their operation, and ignoring it, I feel, is no longer an option without risking significant competitive disadvantage. So, AI really offers transformative potential across various aspects of the business, including customer service or CX. And I think the leaders who fail to leverage these technologies, they might find their their companies falling behind, and this is too big of a paradigm shift to risk being a laggard, in my opinion, as opposed to co-innovate, together with our clients to find out what flies and adds value. Because to be honest, we don't have all the answers and all the use cases possible. So, we're still in an early phase.
Yeah. And I guess that sometimes it can be scary. Like a customer service director can be hearing people talking about transformation and paradigm shifts, and this is a new era for business. And at the end of the day, when you talk to clients, what are they looking for? Like new ways or better ways to interact with their customers, or is it more about using these tools to create more efficiency and greater productivity?
I think you're touching on topics that are important for them in both ends, so to speak. But generally looking, they don't ask for one thing. They ask for a mix of outcomes when they acquire about AI with us, at least. It's obviously productivity improvements and efficiency that are at the forefront, because we can automate routine tasks and we can streamline processes and so forth. But many clients are also a little bit excited about the new possibilities that AI can offer in enhancing sort of the customer interaction per se, the personalization, providing new innovative solutions that maybe previously were unimaginable. And they see AI as a way, to revolutionize a little bit how they connect with and how they serve their customers. So I think that's interesting, and somehow they are also very interested in learning and understanding more about their customers and their business as a whole, not only the external processes but also the internal processes. So this is, I think, is really interesting that you can apply it both in the customer-facing processes and customer journeys, as well as in your core internal processes. So it is really a mixed bag. But I think, personally, I guess, you might ask about the future later on. So I think it will be embedded in most processes going forward.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of the focus has been on these very large language models, stuff like ChatGPT. I mean, it's not the only solution out there, but generally we're looking at models that require vast amounts of data and energy use as well. I mean, I read that I think OpenAI is using enough electricity to power a town of 200,000 homes. So it's absolutely enormous. And
it's not sitting high on the sustainability scale, if you're
Yeah, and that's probably another entirely different subject as well, that as we keep improving it, we keep increasing the amount of energy we need. And I saw that you mentioned before, probably on the newsletter, about much smaller more focused language models actually being much more useful for customer service processes. Could you maybe describe how does that work? How does it work by not having as much information then?
Yeah. So with the risk of being too extensive, you have to stop me because there's a lot to say about this topic. But I think the focus on ChatGPT indeed created some challenges for CX brands and BPO companies in particular, because it brought a significant attention to the capabilities, but it also overshadowed more specialized AI solutions that were tailored for CX. Many advanced targeted tools exist, and they can offer much more precise and effective customer service solutions, but they may not receive the same recognition. So it's important for the professionals in our business, both on the seller and the buying side, to educate ourselves about these specialized tools and the benefits. And we try to think that almost down to an enterprise tailored solution could sometimes be much more efficient and much more, from a sustainability perspective, less energy consuming. And I think some of the bigger companies are finding out when they try to buy the big models from the big players and scale them in their in-house operations, for example, they realize it's really expensive, and it's not, potentially as accurate and as precise as if we have trained the algorithm on specifically the material they want to train it on, because that is what's needed to handle the questions this bot is about to receive. So, having a ton of data and train the algorithm of a lot of things that are not relevant to the questions we expect is a little bit of waste of money, but also waste of energy.
Yeah.
So I think there's a whole set of solutions, all from the mainstream, for you and me, and maybe more of an office co-pilot, down to very specific enterprise tailored solutions for that specific brand and a specific part of the functionality where they want to serve with AI services.
Yeah, and I mean, I read your article talking about this, and it made me think of how the type of question that I'm probably going to have when I go to a chatbot is about a product or a service. So if I just bought a new smart television from Samsung and I can't get the setup, I can't get it to connect to the internet. So it's going to be very specific around a product that I have a problem with. And the open AI kind of chatbots are not going to have this very specific information. If I go to ChatGPT and say, how do I set up the internet on my Samsung, XYZ television? It definitely won't have ever been trained on that. So I can see that what you're saying is you need to have very, very kind of product focused information, and you can forget about, no one's ever going to go to the Samsung chatbot and ask it about the American Civil War, for example.
No, and I think you have a point there, and it's like a double whammy, because if you tailor it down to be trained on what it's expected to solve, you also limit the chance of crazy hallucinations. So from a security standpoint, you get both better security and more accuracy in terms of the customer expectations. So that's why I think there will be a place for those types of solutions, alongside with all the big mainstream off-the-shelf type of models that we see popping up now from all the big players.
Yeah. Well, on like a related area, but not quite focused on AI, I saw one of your newsletters was around how the metaverse might actually work out. And, clearly this is something that a couple of years ago, Mark Zuckerberg even renamed his company, saying that the metaverse would be how we're all enjoying our leisure time and work time. And it's never quite taken off the way that it was suggested. But I saw you saying that there might be some sort of specific use cases that could start working out. So how do you see that sort of growing? And I guess it's already working in gaming. We're already seeing loads of people in virtual worlds for games. But how will it work in the corporate world?
Well, obviously, I don't have a clear prediction exactly where they will pop up, outside the gaming space that is a bit more known to us. But I do believe that metaverse will extend beyond gaming, and virtual office spaces will play a crucial role, going forward. It could encompass virtual retail environments, customer service interactions, social engagement, educational platforms. If you're talking about use cases, so I can see where you could have sort of virtual spaces in some areas. I think it's a little bit, timeline-wise, human evolution is kind of slow, but it moves. But I think it's kind of closely connected also to the generational succession. So with AI in general and for metaverse too, it will be more complementary than a replacement of something, and it will gain speed as soon as some of the 100% digital native generation becomes sort of mid-age and are making up a big portion of the commercial community. I think we will see this moving a bit more rapid. But it's a good idea, but the timing when it came up was maybe a bit early.
Yeah. I guess I mean, what you're saying then is the idea of hanging out in a virtual space, if you're Generation X, might seem a bit unusual. But if you're like Generation Z or even younger, and your kind of leisure activity is playing Fortnite and you're in a game with people from 50 different countries, then when your university creates a virtual classroom and you've got people from 50 countries in the classroom, it will just feel completely normal.
Exactly, and it becomes like a digital ecosystem somehow, you know. But I do believe in the beginning it will be much more complementary than replacing.
Yeah,
that's something I'm pretty sure of.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, Len, just to sort of wrap up, then let's take a look ahead. You know, what do you think?
I knew you were coming here.
Well, you know, your newsletter is Transform Customer Service, and it's always looking to the future. So, you know, I know that it's very difficult to kind of look far into the future because things are changing so fast. But we're already halfway through this decade. You know, we're in the second half of 24 now. So, you know, before too long, it's going to be Christmas and 2025. So, you know, what do you think that we can see that might be transformative within the 2020s then?
Yeah. I guess I'll start a bit generic and then let's see if I can sort of wrap it up at the end. But just the fact that we have access to so much more data points nowadays. I mean, data is not shortage, you know, and the computing power is much better, and we have much more sophisticated algorithms who can handle, you know, they're able to handle much larger volumes of interaction, much faster, much better, much smarter with the contextual things around the AI applications. I kind of choose to take a more positive approach, you know, without neglecting the fact that we need to deal with the threats. You know, if you're purpose driven, I mean, you can use everything the good way or a bit more bad or evil way. So we have to ignore. We cannot ignore, you know, hallucinations and all of those types of things that we've seen and heard about. But I still choose, you know, to be positive that we can create better experience and service for all customers the way they want it in the future. And at the same time, we can create better work environments and much more fun jobs for our employees. And, you know, we can create value for our clients and for our company or stakeholders. So it is a little bit of a win-win times two in that sense. But I think the 2020s will likely see AI becoming deeply embedded in every aspect of a company's processes and journeys, you know, internally and externally. And it will fundamentally transform how businesses interact with their customers. So, you know, maybe not any exciting new things that you haven't heard before, but I think that is the paradigm shift, that AI will be like a component in everything. You know, it will just be embedded in the recipe of everything, and that will enable us to do things differently. You know, in a lot of parameters and dimensions.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I
do agree.
I really think it's a big paradigm shift.
Yeah, the access to data and the number of data points and the kind of real-time analysis of what a business is doing. I think that's definitely going to be a big change.
Yeah. And it's exciting for me that is not a generation digital native. I think this is, you know, for us that are a bit further on along the timeline. It's super exciting, and I'm super curious on learning more. And even if you follow it every day and you read about it, it's really hard to keep up because it's moving so fast. So, you know, some of the earlier shifts we thought they moved fast when we experienced them, but I think this one it takes the price.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I wrote an essay recently about Stephen Loyne's new book, where he's describing the future being driven by AI, and I actually referred back to a book I read in 1999, which was by the science writer James Gleick, and that book was called Faster, and it was complaining that in the 90s everything was moving too fast for us to understand. And now, if you look back, before smartphones and before social media, the world seems very slow compared to what we have now.
I know. But it's good. It keeps us on our toes, and we need to develop our agile way of processing information. And I think it's more exciting than scaring, for me at least.
Okay, well, that seems like a good note to end on, and positive look to the future. Thank you very much, Jonas.
Thanks a lot, Mark. Good to talk to you as always.
Thanks for listening to the CX Files podcast. We really appreciate your feedback and suggestions. You can reach myself, Mark Hillary, or Peter Ryan via LinkedIn. Please also leave a rating or review on your favourite podcast provider, as that helps more people to find us. As always, we'd like to thank Chris Haig at Traction Media for the CX Files graphics. See you next week.